Welcome back everybody to another season highlights on Football Manager 2006. I am still St Johnstone manager, and as you can see, second season in a row. This is the third season in this save, second in the top division. We managed to come second once again, which in some ways is pleasing, but in others is obviously quite frustrating. This is last season, we got 79 points, Celtic won the league with 93. This season, we got 71 points, so 8 less. And Rangers won the league with 82. So again, we came second to one of the old firm. As far as our goals tally goes, we were second highest scorers. Unfortunately, we're mid-table as far as goals conceded goes, which is obviously one of the key areas that we would have to work on to improve. Had we conceded even a few less goals, who knows, we could be well up the table. Briefly, we're going to take a look at the awards. I don't think we were in the running for any of these. I came third in Manager of the Year. I won Manager of the Month twice. Player of the Month, as you can see, Bob Malcolm, Darren Young, Enzo Giovanni Scorza, and Stefan all won Player of the Month at one time. Player of the Year, none of my players were up there. In Team of the Year, Stefan, Enzo Giovanni Scorza, and Alan McGregor. They were all added to that. Top goal scorer, none of my players were there. Young Player of the Month, Enzo Giovanni Scorza won it way back in August. And Young Player of the Year, yeah, none of my players made an appearance. So, let's have a look at the transfers then for this season. Oh yeah, there's no players in my first team because I was doing a clear out and I had them all situated here. Anyway, transfers real quick. Let's have a look at players. Should we look at players going out? So this was players from last season that are no longer at the club. David Lilly, I already mentioned that in the last video, but he was moving to Aberdeen for almost £1 million. He ended up moving and he played a few games this season. He probably got injured at one time. These two players here, Andy Jackson and this guy, I can't pronounce his name, Stefanos Vasilomichelakis. Yeah, our Greek midfielder. He was actually in our under-19s. I see he's been relegated to Forfars under-19s, whom he signed for. But there you go, he wasn't really, I didn't feel he was going to make the grade at our club. Mark Gower was released at the end of his contract. He was a good backup player, but he wasn't going to make it into the first team, so I let him go, and it looks like Rochdale picked him up. Willie Dyer was a youth player. He chose to go to York for free, it looks like. Then Stuart McCaffrey, I sold him to Hartlepool for 100 grand. He played a fair bit of games for them. And this was the final one. Interesting one. I got rid of our Italian defender, Salvatori Ferraro. I don't quite regret it, because he wasn't breaking into the first team, but I think he was better than what I was giving him credit for. Anyway, he's got a good rating at Partick Thistle, who were in the second division, but they got promoted, so he was part of a title-winning team. So good for him. Now, on to the players that came in, players we signed. So we sold players for a total of 1 million. But then we bought players for a total of 1.5 million. The players that came in, first of all, Chris Burke. You might recognise this guy. He was in my Football Manager 2005 save. Now, just to be clear, I'm not buying the same players just to be in keeping with that save. Obviously, I've got players like Willie McLaren and Jason Scotland. Then obviously this guy. We might have one or two others that are similar from the last save. I'm not buying this guy for that reason, but rather just because he was available and I needed a right winger to replace Mark Gower. I had to retrain him in the midfield right role instead, because he was just a straight up winger. I wanted him to play wide midfield, so I trained him up and he should be good now. He got a decent rating, signed him for $500,000 from Wigan because he originally played for Rangers. Then we signed this guy. This guy was someone I was chasing for about a year. This is Jonas Johansson. He was signed for 350 grand from Tromsø, who are a Norwegian club. As you can see, he is a former Norwegian under-21 international. He played a bit this season and did pretty well. He can play in a variety of roles in the centre of midfield, which is useful. Then this guy, whose name I've struggled to pronounce, I signed him on a free from Juventus. I've gone with Gerardo Clement because he's Swiss, and I feel Clement is kind of more of that sort of a style of language. Anyway, he's a central midfielder. That's the only position he can play, which is fine. Did pretty well this season. His stats seem kind of low. He was injured for a month back in February. Maybe that's a reason for it. Stats go down so much in this version. Then we signed Bob Malcolm, another ex-Rangers player. He's a centre-back. He did very well this season, played in 17 odd games. We'll have a look at his stats more later. Then I signed Chris Evans as a youth player from Cobh Ramblers. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that. It's an Irish team. An Irish team. We signed Chris Evans, and he's a youth player, but he's on loan at Dunfermline in the first division at this time. Did pretty well. We also signed Martin Osborne from Queen's Park. He's a striker. Looks like he's developing fairly nicely. And we also signed John Swift. This was another player signed as a youth player. I signed him from Waterford United. This is something I did in the previous game. I should say that these players that come from clubs in like Ireland, all the regens, as in the fake players that are spawned into the game, they're all English, which must be a huge bug. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. John Swift similarly came from Waterford United in Ireland. He's English. Only English players seem to regenerate into these Irish, Welsh and Northern Irish clubs. Martin Osborne's also English, and he came from, Queen's Park. Then we've got this guy, Richard Williams. Now, he was also signed as a youth player, but interestingly, he was a defensive midfielder. Then I saw these were his stats, and I thought, he looks like a striker. So what I've done is, he was ineffectual as a striker, so see how his goalkeeper role, or his centre-back role, or his left-back role, they're greyed out because he's ineffectual. He cannot play that role. That's what his striking role was like. But I've been training him up as a striker all season. He's now competent. He should be accomplished soon. You can't train someone to be a natural. They can only be accomplished, which is better than nothing anyway. So that's his story. He came in. He's a Welsh under-19 internationalist. He came in from Cork City. But obviously Cork City's not a Welsh club. Then we've got two other youth players. Richard Cooper, left winger. Decent stats, although his crossing is questionable. Similarly, Danny Wilson is a good young keeper, but his bravery is questionable. Those were two other youth players that I signed from other British or Irish teams. Then two other main players that we signed. We signed Soterios Kyriakos, who you may know as a former Rangers player. He also played for Liverpool at one time, although not in this game. He was signed, he did alright this season, so that's three ex-Rangers players we signed. Unfortunately, they're all like ex-Rangers backup players, but that's okay. And then our final signing came in January. I needed a spare left-back for whatever reason. I can't remember if our original left-back got injured, but I signed Andrew Nicholas from Bradford, I want to say. Hull. I actually did sign him as a backup. I remember now why I signed him. It's because I wanted to play as a wing-back. I ended up only playing wing-backs in one game, and that was it. Probably just a test. It probably failed. Anyway, let's have a look at the stats. So I've moved all of our players, except for the loan players, to the first team squad. We'll see who finished top scorer and all that. So, well, who played the most games? Sean Dillon, the captain, played the most games at left-back. He's been very good. He's won by Celtic and Preston. I will ensure he stays around for the following season, but as you can see, 17 influence, 19 determination, and our other top appearance makers include Fuzelov, who was our Tajikistani right back. We've also got Stefan Gislason, who was our Icelandic centre back, Alan McGregor, our goalkeeper, Ben Clark, centre back, Enzo Giovanni Scorza, goal scorer, and then various other people. Top scorer, no surprise, it was Enzo Giovanni Scorza. I think he was top scorer, was it last season? He certainly scored a lot last season, but this season he really became a top player in this division, scoring 19 in the league, 11 assists in the league too. Jason Scotland finished with more than 20 goals as well. I don't think he's quite as good in this game, but like compared with Football Manager 2005, but he still bags the goals, which is important. Geomar also got 12 goals. Ara Hakobian got 11 goals. Stephen Dobby got 5 in 11 starts, 3 sub-appearances. And then you got all the other players that weighed in with goals. Ben Clark there, Sergei Kovalchuk, our Moldovan winger. Enzo Giovanni Scores actually got the most assists as well. Kovalchuk coming in at second there with 9. Geomar with 7. Chris Burke, Jonas Johansson, Jason Scotland, they all chipped in with assists, I should say. Jason Scotland got the most man of the match awards. Various other people got 3, including Scorza, Gislason, Alan McGregor, Ben Clark, Alan Poughton, and Fuzelov. But, most importantly, highest average rating was Alan Poughton. Once again, he has been very, very consistent. He's definitely the most consistent player I've ever had in Football Manager. I said this, I think, when I signed him, but I actually had him in a previous save with Torquay United way back about 10 years ago, and I came in for him again in this save because I knew how good he was. And he signed from Gillingham, who are, I think, well, they would have been League One at the time. And honestly, he's just gone from strength to strength. He's done very well at this level. I'm not saying this level's that far above League One, but you know what I mean. You'd think with the likes of European competition and playing the likes of Celtic and Rangers, some people might be found out, but not this guy. And then we've got Darren Young, who is a defensive midfielder. Back up to Alan Poughton, although he does just as well whenever he's playing. Scores us up there. Lloyd Dyer, our English left winger. I'm sure he was around last season, wasn't he? Yeah, this is his second season, though they didn't play much last season. Sean Dillon's up there. Lassen's up there. Alan McGregor, Fuzilov. Yeah, Fuzilov had a really good season. This was his second season at the club. One thing I forgot to mention in the last video was that work permits are a real issue. Now, they're always an issue in Football Manager, but for EU countries, you can sign players from any other EU country without the need for a work permit. However, this game was set in 2005. It's Football Manager 2006, but it's set at the start of the 2005-06 season. And back then, there was less EU countries than there are now. Right, so I've looked up the internet, and the 3 countries I can see that are now part of the European Union that aren't in this game are the likes of Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia. So basically, scouting in those countries means that you're unlikely to get recommended a player that doesn't need a work permit, which is a real issue. I didn't actually know Serbia or Montenegro was not in the EU. I thought they were. Because to cite, this is back in the day when Serbia and Montenegro were the same country. They were what was left of the old Yugoslavia, and to sign players from that nation, you do need work permits for them. I thought they were part of the EU. I was obviously wrong, which is why I looked it up. But for Romanian players, Croatian players, and what was the other one? Bulgaria. You need work permits, whereas in the modern day, you wouldn't need that. Anyway, let's have a look at the fixtures. I should say, very happy with second place, although hopefully at one stage this save we can win the league. I'm not too hopeful though if our defence keeps leaking goals. We had a few pre-season friendlies. We drew 1-1 with Marseille, then we lost 3-2 to Wigan and 2-1 to Norwich. But our competitive fixtures got off to a good start. We beat Rabotniki, who are a Macedonian club. Ara Hakobian got the scoring underway in 15 minutes. Jason Scotland added a second on 57 minutes to get us a 2-0 home win. So this was the second qualifying round, which meant we had to win 2 ties to get to the group stage. So if we won against this team and then another team, we would get to the group stages of the Champions League. Next up was our first league game. Fortunately, it was against Rangers. We lost 3-1. Scorsese got our goal in that game. Unfortunately, this team wasn't quite as good as us, but we managed to lose 1-0 to them away from home. In Macedonia, we lost 1-0 to Rabotniki. That was a bit of a shame, but we got through 2-1 on aggregate. You'll see who we played later. We beat Hibs 5-0 in the league to record our first league victory. Geomar netted twice in the first 15 minutes with a goal, and then a goal from the penalty spot. Enzo Giovanni scores to put us 3-0 up on half-time. Then Jonas Johansson netted for us 5 minutes after the interval, and then on 66 minutes Enzo Giovanni completed the scoring. And you will notice Colin Kazim Richards was sent off for Hibs. He was actually playing for Hibs. There's some interesting players that are, well, he's at Reading now, but in Football Manager there's interesting players that move about clubs. He was a Turkish international from back in the day. It doesn't even come up that he's Turkish in his bio here, because people probably didn't know that back then. This was before he was capped. He most famously starred for Turkey in their run to the semi-final of Euro 2008. So next up was our Champions League qualifying round 3, leg 1 game against Ajax. We just got absolutely turned over here, lost 3-0 at home. Basically, that's tie over. There's no getting away from it. Sad thing was, it was 1-0 until the hour mark. If we'd only lost 1-0, I would have felt, not confident, but okay, we could still get back in this. Pulling off a 2-0 win away from home isn't the most unlikely thing ever. Pulling off a 4-0 away win, very unlikely. But it was all good. Not really. We lost 4-0 to Hearts in the league. The sooner I forget about that, the better. We bounced back with a win against Falkirk. Scorza scored. You'll hear a lot of that, I'm sure. Scorza scored on 75 minutes, 15 to go. Managed to get us a vital 3 points. Late goals are a feature of this season, as you will see later on. It was back to Champions League action, and our last Champions League game for the season. We lost 7-1 on aggregate. They were 1-0 up in 9 minutes. Enzo Giovanni Scorza did equalise for us on 44 minutes, but they then went and scored 3 after half-time to put the tie beyond doubt. The thing is, when you come up against a team that's just too good, there's not much you can do. You have to have an outrageously good game in order to beat them. Now, I appreciate we beat Bayern in my last save in Football Manager 2005, and we beat Fenerbahce and all that, but you don't beat good teams all the time, if you know what I mean, unless you're really good at the game, which I am not. Then we came up against Livingston in the league. Lee Wilkie was sent off, but not before Ara Hakobian netted in the first minute for us. Enzo Giovanni Scorza then netted a double either side of half-time in 26 minutes and 84 minutes to get us the victory. And moving on from that, 2-2 draw against Inverness Caledonian Thistle. They took the lead, but Enzo Giovanni Scorza put us 2-1 up right before half-time. He scored both his goals on 42 and 45 minutes. And then Richie Hart went and netted a penalty on 81 minutes. With 9 minutes remaining, they equalised. And, I mean, it was a fairly even game. If anything, they had more chances than us. So maybe a draw was a fair result. It was time for our UEFA Cup run, which didn't last long. But we came up against AZ Alkmaar, who we actually beat in the 2005 save. Unfortunately, away from home, we capitulated, losing 4-2. We went 1-0 up through Ben Clark, actually, which was very encouraging. But then they pulled one back, or they equalised, rather. Then Sergei Kovalchuk, our Moldovan winger, he put us back in front on 36 minutes. Before half-time, though, they equalised, making it 2-2. Then they scored a double after half-time. Thankfully, one of their players missed a penalty, but we were 2 goals behind with... Well, we did have 2 away goals, which was quite encouraging, but you'll see how that worked out for us later. We then lost 3-1 to Kilmarnock. Again, the sooner I forget this game, the better. Scorza got the goal on the day. It's all good though, we beat Dundee United. Jason Scotland netted on 7 minutes. Enzo Giovanni Scorza netted a double on 18 minutes and 35 minutes. Dundee United did pull 1 goal back after half-time, but we held out for the victory. We then beat Aberdeen 4-1 at home. Jason Scotland, Sotirius Kyriakis, Neil Jankzik and Geomar, they all got goals. Geomar did miss a penalty, but it was a 4-1 win, so he can kind of be forgiven. Neil Jankzik's a player I never spoke about. He was one of the originals. He's got decent stats, but the problem is he's not very consistent, and he's probably not so good for this level, even though his stats would say otherwise. Certainly his technical attributes would say otherwise. But he played a few games. That was his only goal of the season. Darren Markey pulled one back in this particular game for Aberdeen. Then our European run came to an end. We did manage to get a win against AZ Alkmaar, but it wasn't enough. Ara Hakobian netted on 5 minutes, and the aim was obviously to win 2-0, not concede. Unfortunately, we conceded either side of half-time, so we were 6-3 down on aggregate. Jason Scotland netted with 12 minutes to go. Enzo Giovanni Scorza scored in injury time, but it wasn't to be. We won 3-2, lost 6-5. So out of Europe, we can now focus on the league. We drew with Dundee, who had been promoted. Marlon King, who had signed for Dundee, he scored the opening goal. Then, here we go, late goal. Ben Clark netted for us, 5 minutes to go. So, as you can see, another example of a late goal that we scored this season. We then beat Motherwell 2-0. Enzo Giovanni Scorza got both of the goals. Again, late goals. 12 minutes to go and 10 minutes to go. That's fairly late. He scored on those times, though. Paul Reed got sent off on 82 minutes, which obviously just helped us along a bit. But that was another good 3 points. Then this was game of the season by far. 2-2 draw with Celtic. Zorowski netted either side of half-time to put Celtic 2-0 up. 3 of our players, namely Pablo Ore, Alan Poughton and Stephen Dobby, all picked up injuries in this game. But then inside the last 20 minutes, Fuzailov netted not 1, but 2 free kicks to salvage a point. And the final free kick was gold because Mark Noble, who was playing for Celtic, pulled down one of our players as they were through on goal, got sent off, and the free kick, it was like right on the line. It could have been a penalty, it could have been a free kick. It was a free kick. Fuzailov tucked it away to get us a point against Celtic, which was fantastic. We then topped that, we beat Rangers 1-0. Ben Clark netted on 73 minutes to get us the 3 points from that game. So 2 home games against the Old Firm and we got 4 points out of it. It was pretty pleasing. David Healy netted a penalty early in the second half as we played Hibs away. Thankfully, Gilmar came in with an equaliser on 90 minutes. I do apologise actually, going back to the Dundee United game, I forgot they got relegated last season, so that wasn't a league game, that was a cup game, that was in the League Cup. Completely forgot about that, but as you can see, we got through to the League Cup quarter-final, courtesy of this 3-1 win that I forgot to mention, or acknowledge at least, that it was in the Cup. Anyway, moving on, League Cup quarter-final. Lost 2-1 to Celtic. We always seem to get drawn against the Old Firm at this stage or at various stages of the Cups. I guess to win the Cups you've got to beat at least one of the Old Firm. When we won the Scottish Cup last season, we beat Celtic in the quarterfinals, so unfortunately we didn't manage it this time. And John Hartson, who's got no pace, basically scored against us, which was not great. Lost to Celtic, but it was all good because we beat Falkirk in the Premier League with another late goal. Hakobiad put us 1-0 up. Chris Maguire, who's a very deadly striker, he equalised for Falkirk, but then 6 minutes to go, Jason Scotland pops up with a goal. I guess at this point we should talk about tactics. I haven't spoken about tactics really this season. So we started off with our classic 4-1-3-2 tactics that I used in the previous 2 seasons, that one being the counter tactic, that one being the more advanced tactic. I found we were conceding a lot at one point in the season, so I dropped back and went for a more conservative 4-2-3-1 or 4-2-1-2-1 or 4-3-3 or 4-5-1. Call it whatever you want, but it's more defensive. It utilises 2 defensive midfielders, which is good because we've got a lot of good defensive midfielders, the likes of Alan Poughton, Darren Young. Even Jonas Johansson can play there. The downside is it only has 1 striker, and as you can see we've got a lot of strikers to use, so that's not so good. Anyway, the reason we got a lot of late goals was because I utilised a 4-2-4 kind of kamikaze tactic where we just play with 4 strikers, sorry. Not that many players in the middle. The idea is to get the ball long and to do some damage. It doesn't always work, unfortunately, because you really need to control possession in their third, and that's not possible if teams are playing on the back foot or they're playing with 4 defenders or whatnot. So, a bit unfortunate that doesn't always work, but obviously it worked a fair amount here, as you can see, based on our result here against Falkirk. Next up was a 2-1 win over Hearts. Another late goal. Graham Dorrans put Hearts 1-0 up. Hakobiad then equalised for ourselves on, just after half time. And Gilmar popped up with the winner on 90 minutes. So a good 3 points there at home to Hearts. Up next was a 2-2 draw against Livingston, which unfortunately came back to bite us. We scored a late goal. They scored an even later goal. They actually took the lead. Hakobiad netted a double after half time on 47 minutes, and then on 82 minutes, which we thought was the winning goal, but then Livingston went and netted an equaliser 2 minutes later to deny us an important 3 points. Our next game was against Cali Thistle away, managed a 4-1 win, although on the face of things it looks like a very comfortable victory, but keep in mind we were 1-0 down for the vast majority of the game. We only scored our first goal on 71 minutes. Danny Forrest put them 1-0 up. Jason Scotland, with 90 minutes to go, scored our opening goal to equalise. Then Enzo Giovanni scores on netted a double on 80 minutes and on 86 minutes. And then Jason Scotland completed the scoring on 88 minutes. So really our scoring occurred within like a 15-minute time frame in the last 20, so it was quite a nervy game up till we scored, and then even after we scored it was another 9 minutes before we got the winner, but in the end, good win. Next game was a 5-0 victory at home to Kilmarnock. Stephen Dobby grabbed a double in this game, and Enzo Giovanni netted a hat-trick. Dobby got the first on 4 minutes, then Scorza got one on 8 minutes, doubled his goals tally on 16 minutes, and then after half-time, Stephen Dobby made it 4-0. And Enzo Giovanni made it 5-0 in the 70th minute. And that was it. Gavin Williams got sent off for Kilmarnock, but we were already home and dry by then, so it didn't make much of a difference. Next up, 4-2 away victory to Aberdeen. Very, very important. It's always good to win at Aberdeen. Lloyd Dyer netted one of his few goals of the season. He didn't play much, did he? That was his only goal of the season. First goal for the club. He netted on 1 minute. Stephen Dobby then doubled our advantage on 9 minutes, and then tripled our advantage, I guess you could say, on 49 minutes after half time. They then pulled 2 back through Finn Bogason and Nicholson, But Carl Fletcher netted an own goal, did the Curtis thing and netted an own goal for us on 90 minutes, and that really eased the pressure that we were under at that time. So our good run continued. We beat Dundee 3-0. Hakobian got a double on 4 minutes, and then later in the game on 72 minutes, and then Enzo Giovanni scores a netted on 78 minutes to complete the scoring, get an important 3-0 home win against rivals Dundee. We then beat Motherwell 1-0 away. Enzo Giovanni scores a netted on 3 minutes, and that was it for the rest of the game. And as you can see by the possession and stats, yeah, Motherwell should have at least got an equaliser. Next up was Scottish Cup third round duty. We were trying to retain the Scottish Cup this season. We beat East Stirling, who are notoriously the worst team in Scotland, although they're not really, well, they're not this professional setup anymore. But back then they finished bottom of the third division regularly. We managed to beat them 4-2. Geomar, Jason Scotland and Bob Malcolm get the goals on 17, 32, 41 and 45 minutes. Geomar getting a double on 17 and 45. East Stirling actually pulled 2 back on 68 minutes and then on 86 minutes, partly because we were playing that sort of a formation with those. Maybe not the strongest of lineups. He's a young central midfielder that came through the club's youth system. He was on loan at St Mirren last season when he didn't play at all. But the reason he's in the team, although he's not quite as good as my other central midfielders, is that he will count towards the quota of homegrown players you need for European competition. So that's the only reason I've kept him around, really, is so that we can meet our quota for homegrown players with first team players. So that's why he's in the first team. Played 12 games off the bench, didn't do so well, but you know, there's time for him to improve, hopefully. Plus his stats are really good. Look, stamina, strength, work rate, teamwork, bravery, all of them are at 20. So at this point in the Premier League campaign, we had, originally we'd lost a few games, which is why we were down here, but then we'd worked our way up, we were second, Rangers were quite far ahead, but at this point here, we'd managed to pull ahead of them, so we'd actually gone into first place for a day. That's why you see a dip here from Rangers, is because we were ahead of them for a day, even though it doesn't show us in first place there. And that was really, with our good form, we'd managed to close the gap on them and then obviously overtake them for a day. But things changed. As you can see, we actually dipped here. And the reason for that is there was a big gap between ourselves in second and whoever else was in third and fourth. And yeah, things didn't go so well after beating East Stirlingshire in the Scottish Cup. First of all, we lost 4-2 to Celtic, and we went 2-0 up as well, which was the annoying thing, but then they went and scored 4. And we then drew 2-2 with Hibs. Not a bad result, but we should have won, really. They netted on 50 minutes. Enzo Giovanni scores equalised on 63 minutes, but then less than 10 minutes later, they went 2-1 up. It then took a late goal from Satirius Kyriakos to get us the point, and actually Kowalczyk missed a penalty on 4 minutes. All of my penalty takers seem to miss, which is really annoying. We then beat Heart of Midlothian away, which was a good result, don't get me wrong, it was a very good result. Peter Lovenkrands netted early for them, but then Stephen Dobby netted on 38 minutes. Jason Scotland got a brace on 46 minutes and on 76 minutes to put us 3-1 up. They did pull one back, but it was all good because we held on for the victory and for an important 3 points. Next up, we got knocked out in the Scottish Cup. Again, we got drawn against one of the Old Firm. For some reason, we can't avoid them. Need I say more? They netted on 18 minutes. We then drew 1-1 with Falkirk. Game we probably should have done far better in. It took an 83rd minute equaliser from Jason Scotland to pull us level. Another late goal. After that, we lost 4-2. To Rangers, same scoreline that we lost to Celtic. This time we were 4-0 down at half time. Unfortunately, it took, well, 2 goals late on from Jason Scotland and then a penalty from Clement to, well, make the goal difference a bit more respectable. Following this, we lost 3-2 to Livingston. This was a nightmarish game. As you can see, we were 2-1 up at one point. Geomar on 22 minutes and Jason Scotland pulled us back to 2-1. Unfortunately, before half-time, they'd already equalised. Then they netted a penalty, presumably when we were going for a victory. And after that, another defeat, this time at home to Cali Thistle. And again, we were probably going for a victory late on, and we lost a last-minute winner from Liam Keogh. After that, we then beat Kilmarnock 4-0. This was our first game using the new formation, I think, the whatever you want to call that, 4-5-1, a variant of the 4-5-1, and it worked very well. Away win against Kilmarnock. Stefan Gislason got the opener on 31 minutes. Jason Scotland then scored 3 minutes later, and after half time, Jason Scotland and Sergei Kovalchuk put us 4-0 up on 50 minutes and 58 minutes respectively. So very important 3 points, a turn in fortunes for us. At this point we were third, we dropped. The gap was very important, because had that gap between second and third not be there, we would have been right down the table. We continued that with a 5-1 home win over Aberdeen. Great stuff. They actually took the lead through Dan Mackey, but then Jason Scotland netted on 18 minutes. Ben Clark and Stefan Gislason both netted on 34 and 40 minutes respectively to give us a 3-1 lead at half time, and it stayed like that until injury time when Chris Burke netted to make it 4-1, and then Jason Scotland netted deeper into injury time to make it 5-1, so the score was very, very respectable at full time. Following that, we had a 1-0 victory on TV away to Dundee. Jason Scotland got the only goal on 20 minutes. We then beat Motherwell 2-1. Jason Scotland got both the goals on 26 minutes and on 75 minutes. Richard Britton equalised for them when it was still 1-0, but we got the win in the end. We then drew 1-1 with Celtic at home. Sergei Kovalchuk netted a penalty on 4 minutes. Fortunately, Craig Beattie equalised on 53, but I mean, a draw against Celtic isn't a bad thing. Then we had to play Celtic again, this time away from home, and fortunately we lost 2-0. Zurowski and Mark Noble getting the 2 goals for them. That was one of the rare occasions we failed to score in a game. We then beat Inverness Cali Thistle 1-0. Geomar getting the winner on 15 minutes. Stayed like that for the entirety of the game, and we probably just shaded it based on those statistics. We then beat Aberdeen 2-1 at home. Geomar netted a double on 15 minutes and on 45 minutes to put the score at 2-0 going into half time. Dan Mackey did pull one back on 77 minutes, and Kiriakos was sent off on 85, but we held out for the win. The reason Geomar's playing is because he got unhappy. He didn't like the fact he wasn't playing, so I thought, right, I'll just play him anyway. Turns out it was a good decision, because he got a lot of goals for us in the back end of the season. Following that, we lost 2-0 to Rangers. Just run-of-the-mill stuff, really. Kind of what you expect, especially at the end of the season. They were actually going for the title anyway, and that might be the game that won them the title. I don't remember if they'd... No, I think they'd won the title by then already, because they were so far ahead. Anyway, final game of the season, 1-0 victory over Dundee. Geomar, once again, proving that he was well worth a first-team spot, and he scored in 80 minutes. Another late goal at that to win us the game, which was fantastic. So that was the end of that. As a result of finishing second, we got back in the Champions League, which was good. I'm hoping to progress further next time, although the thing is, there's a lot of good teams at the Champions League third qualifying stage. As you will see here, this is where we got knocked out, but the likes of Ajax, Sporting Lisbon, Monaco are there, Villarreal, Arsenal. The point is, it's not going to be easy to get past that stage. We've got to try though, so we'll see how that goes next time. Anyway, thank you. I'm just going to end it there. Thank you for checking out this season highlights. Should be back again next week with next season. And yeah, all the best. Bye for now.